Ms. Norton for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My friends on the other side often demonize migrants who are attempting to cross the southern border. They call it an invasion. I don't think such rhetoric is worthy of members of Congress. But as a result of this extreme rhetoric, faith-based organizations that support asylees and refugees fleeing violence and persecution have reported receiving heightened threats and attacks. All this rhetoric does is fan the flames. Migrants are increasingly dehumanized as a direct result of Republican xenophobic rhetoric. In 2019, a far-right anti-immigrant extremist murdered 23 people, most of them Latino, at a Walmart in El Paso, Texas. Perhaps we all remember that. According to his so-called manifesto, his murderous spree was motivated by his belief that there was what he called a Hispanic invasion of people coming to the United States illegally. Chief Molden, does hateful rhetoric, xenophobia, or racism have any place in the Border Patrol?
Ma'am, thank you for the question. I would say absolutely not. I think hearings like this are a great way to get the facts out there, and certainly there is no place for hate within the Border Patrol. Thank you for the question.
Thank you for that answer. Chief Chavez, how does extreme rhetoric, including the rhetoric used by lawmakers, make your work and that of agents more challenging?
Thank you, ma'am, for the question. I think when I'm out there with our agents and we focus on the mission and we do the job that we do every day, encountering the migrants on the ground, the relationship that exists between those agents and encountering those migrants, it's one of those relationships that no one will ever understand, because those migrants, they see that agent for the first time, many of them on their journey. This is the first time they get the assistance and the help that they need from a law enforcement officer from days and weeks, maybe even months on a long journey. So they're very helpful. They're very happy to have seen that agent for the first time. So a lot of times for us, I always talk to the agents about not worrying about the rhetoric or the things that they hear out there, about anything that they may see that's negative. Just focus on your mission. Focus on treating people with dignity and respect that they deserve, like any other human being, and always be professional and keep that standard, right? One of the things that we always strive on, especially in the RGV, where we have these large central processing centers, is that we do our very best to keep migrants healthy, keep them safe, keep them fed, and keep them clean. That's our #1 priority, because they're only with us for a few hours. We are only a CBP temporary holding facility. We are not long-term detention. So that is our #1 priority always.
Well, I certainly appreciate what you are doing to assure these migrants. But Chief Chavez, what can we in Congress do to ensure that we are working toward real and meaningful solutions to strengthen our immigration system?
Ma'am, thank you so much for the question. I have served now 27 years in this outfit, and I remember when I started, it was the 104th session with Congress. We are now at the 118th session, and here still talking, we're talking about immigration, we're still talking about border security. I think that we need to really just embrace change and good change so that we reform our immigration laws. We really need to have that balance between immigration and border security and get serious about that. And we seriously need to find a solution because we're Border Patrol agents. We are the ones that enforce policy, your policy that Congress puts out. We are there to secure that border. We care about the American people. We care about our country. And our Border Patrol agents work very hard every day between those ports of entry to secure this country. And I'm just so very proud. I think that as we continue to move forward, I always ask, whenever Congress is ready to put that team together, look at Border Patrol agents to come in and advise you, because I think there's many of them out there already with experience that know how to help out in building that path forward, because I think it's time. If not, otherwise, if we don't have the right policies or consequences, the world is watching us. And we're going to continue to see these large migration flows from around the world entering here at our southern border. Thank you, ma'am, for the question.
Gentlelady's time has expired. I feel compelled to state the fact that I believe my Democrat friends are confusing real oversight with fanning flames. Conducting oversight allows us to gather facts to solve problems, not fan flames. Chair recognizes Ms. Mace for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Comer. I want to thank Ranking Member Raskin for this hearing today. In Charleston, South Carolina, we have the Border Patrol Training Academy, so I appreciate your efforts to be here today. I've been to the border, and to say it's eye-opening would be an understatement. I think if most Americans could see what's going on there, they would be shocked and stunned. I want to express my disappointment today with the actions of the Department of Homeland Security. The administration initially tried to block our Border Patrol chiefs from appearing before our Oversight Committee hearing today. DHS was literally trying to obstruct oversight, Mr. Chairman, and that's wrong. So I'm grateful for your leadership today, but also begs the question why the administration would not want you both to testify. As we all know, our Border Patrol chiefs, you guys are on the front lines of the border crisis, and we need to hear from you. The American people need to hear from you. Unfortunately, this isn't the first time the administration or DHS has tried to undermine the truth of what's really happening at the border. Secretary Mayorkas used the now debunked border agent whipping incident to label our Border Patrol agents as racist. I can only imagine how that further tanked morale. Secretary Mayorkas' response to a question of whether or not there was a crisis at the border just last year in November, he said, "We're seeing a significant challenge." When you see over 5 million illegal immigrants come across our border, that's not a challenge. That is a crisis. And we're unwilling, it seems like, to admit that crisis is happening. So after 2 years of gaslighting, obstruction, stonewalling, and lies, we're finally able to hear straight from the source. So I want to thank Chief Modlin and Chief Chavez for being here this morning. I have 3 questions, really, that I want to get to, and I have about 3 minutes left, so not a lot of time, if you'll bear with me. I'm kind of curious about your testimony, your joint testimony today. The funding, you mentioned a couple of different ways that the Border Patrol could be supported, but the funding to construct a border wall was missing from your testimony. Why is that? Either of you can answer.
Congresswoman, thank you for the question. As I said, the Border Patrol would certainly appreciate any increases in funding.
That it was missing from your testimony. And so you both have said today that barriers, walls, whatever we want to call it or nuance it, is needed. So why was it missing from your testimony?
Ma'am, I believe what I testified to was that we would appreciate any increase in personnel, technology,
Did
and
someone from
infrastructure.
DHS tell y'all to remove it from your written testimony that was submitted to oversight? Was there discussion about the wall? Was it going to be in there and then it was taken out? Why was it missing? If it's so needed, and you're saying it in your oral arguments today, and I appreciate it. This is not a gotcha, but it is important. I've been down to the border. I've seen it. Agents, I believe there's a great need to have certain barriers, but why was it missing?
Ma'am, earlier I testified to the effectiveness of it. I was not asked to remove anything about border wall system from my testimony.
Okay. And I do appreciate your comments, as I know that Chief Chavez, you said back in 2019, your testimony, and to the former president, that we need a border barrier. Both of you in your testimony today, Tohono O'odham Nation, you said, Chief Modlin, that barriers in certain locations are certainly helpful. I would just appreciate in testimony in the future that we have a real conversation, that it's in the written testimony, because it is so important. and many of us know that. Chief Modlin, you mentioned both personnel and technology being needed for the Border Patrol. The hiring process for Border Patrol agents can last over a year, almost a year and a half sometimes. So what are some of the bureaucratic barriers to getting more agents into the Border Patrol?
Thanks again, ma'am. So I would say, one, that is certainly not my area of expertise, but I do know we have worked very hard to narrow that down. When I came in, it was probably closer to 2 years to get into the Border Patrol.
Wow.
I do think there are some things that can be worked on, such as the ability to pass people that already have a background check, say they're in DOD and they've already had a clearance, to have that slide over into the Border Patrol and then not eat up time doing things like that. I also know our academy has narrowed down significantly, and I believe our attrition at the academy is down from 35% to about 10%. So agency-wide, we've recognized we need more people.
How many agents roughly do you guys think the Border Patrol needs right now across?
So the Border Patrol is at about 19,300 or so. Yes,
How
ma'am.
many more do you need? I mean, or what's the staffing shortage number roughly?
So I think a reasonable amount of agents for the Border Patrol would be about 22,000. But again, that would be a headquarters determination, not mine. I certainly know I don't have enough agents within Tucson sector to deal with the flow that we're dealing with.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Chair recognizes Mr. Garcia for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I want to just thank you both for being here as well. I'm proud to be part of a small group of immigrants in the Congress, and I believe the only immigrant today that's asking questions, and certainly that is here. I immigrated as a young kid from South America to the United States with my family, my mom, my dad, grandmother, and like most immigrants, we came to the United States in search of the American dream in trying to improve what was a very difficult life back home. I always tell people that my proudest day was the day I became a United States citizen. I was in my early 20s. I was just wrapping up college. And I think like most immigrants that we meet, immigrants are actually incredibly patriotic. We love this country. I'm so grateful to be an American and to be here with you today. Immigrants, I think we recognize, have worked really hard to build this country. This is a country of immigrants, and a huge part of our success is due to immigrant labor and immigrants investing back into communities. I think also we understand, and I certainly attest to this, that immigrants are also some of the most patriotic people that you'll ever meet. They love this country, and they're very grateful to be here. We know that being anti-immigrant is really being anti-American, and we should be clear today at this hearing that no human is illegal. I think, unfortunately, we have heard from former leaders, even the former president, President Trump, calling immigrants, and particularly those from Mexico, rapists and drug dealers, and other very derogatory terms. That is not a way to solve this problem. I've heard today a lot of conversation about fentanyl and drugs coming over the border, and one argument that I've heard is this false connection between asylum seekers and immigrants and the very serious fentanyl crisis that we actually is serious in our country and in our community. Now, Chief Modlin, you've made aware some of your comments earlier, but I want to note that the Nonpartisan Government Accountability Office has found that over 90% of fentanyl border seizures actually occur at legal border crossings, and that 91% of drug seizures are actually from U.S. citizens. Now, this same study found that only 4% was from potentially removable immigrants. The percentage of all those arrested at Border Patrol who possess any fentanyl, according to the conservative institute, the Cato Institute, is actually 0.02%. And so the truth is that a vast majority of fentanyl is being smuggled by U.S. citizens at legal ports of entry. And I think many of my colleagues have brought this up and have alluded to this data earlier today. And so I just think it's clear, and it's clear to me from both of you, that you also understand that there is suffering that is happening from people that are desperate along our border. And when asylum seekers are fleeing these repressive regimes, whether it's in Venezuela, whether it's in my home country of Peru, whether it's from Cuba, they are presenting themselves to the Border Patrol to make legal claim for asylum. These are mostly not traffickers. And so I think it's important to think about the people that we're talking about today as human beings, as people, as generally folks that are suffering and that are coming to our country for assistance and for help. It's also been interesting to me that many of our colleagues today who claim to be concerned about this issue voted against a bill which included $430 million for custom and Border Protection to modernize and improve screening at our ports of entry. This, of course, was the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. So this hearing is leaving me with a feeling that, like much in our immigration debate, we don't really have any interest, particularly with my friends on the other side, in actually solving this problem and making our country safer. I want to remind us that the last president to sign real comprehensive immigration reform was President Reagan, a Republican. His leadership back in the 1980s is what put my family and myself on a pathway to citizenship. And so I hope that today's Republican Party and today's leaders within the party are willing to come to the table and actually pass comprehensive and important immigration reform that not only continues to invest in our border and ensure that the asylum process is fair, but that also provides pathways and looks and goes to the root problem as to why folks are actually crossing the border. Because as we are clear from this hearing, it's not a drug issue or solely an issue about fentanyl. It's about desperation, and it's about access to the American dream. So I just want to thank you both for being here today. And Mr. Chairman, I yield back my time.
Gentleman yields back. Chair recognizes Mr. Palmer for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief Mudline, I want to run through some things quickly. I'd appreciate yes or no answer. When we talk about processing people who illegally cross the border, would you agree that a significant portion of those people are ultimately processed for release from DHS custody?
Thanks for the question, sir. I would
yes or
say
no?
yes, that a significant amount of the people are released from our custody.
The fact is there's over 1 million were released in the United States from DHS custody just in fiscal year 2022. These individuals are released with a notice to appear in immigration court at a later date. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. So many people are released with a notice
Okay.
to appear.
Are you aware that the immigration court backlog nationwide is now over 2 million cases?
So that is not within our purview. I am unaware of.
Just for informational purposes, as of the end of December of 22, it was 2,056,328 cases pending in immigration courts nationwide. The average number of days, and this is the average, for a hearing is 771. That's over 2 years. So people who are coming in here illegally are released from custody to appear in an immigration court, and even assuming they actually show up for the court hearing, make any case that they have, and finalize all appeals and other processes available to them, we're talking about years living in the United States before there's ever even a possibility of a removal order. And that's just if they follow the rules. Chief Mudline, would you agree at a very basic level that a higher likelihood of release from custody increases the incentive for people who have come here illegally compared to a scenario where someone would be detained and removed if they were illegally across the border? Would that increase the number of people who would remain here?
Sir, thanks again for the question. What I would say is exactly what I was getting to earlier, is that I think when we talk about the border and border security, we have to recognize it's much bigger than the Border Patrol. We are the first 24 to 72 hours that someone experiences. Everything that you are talking about is much further down. So when we look at, how to solve border security issues, we really have to look at more immigration judges, more CIS personnel, more ERO bed space, so that we don't have the releases into the communities, and then we don't have these 2-year waits, sir.
Well,
But that's all far beyond my
just
purview.
increasing the speed and efficiency and the volume for release from custody, that's just a stopgap measure. That doesn't really stop the flow. I mean, until you're actually removing people, there's really no incentive for anybody to even show up. I find it interesting that my colleagues are just sold out completely for an open border. I understand the need for families to find a better quality of life, but there needs to be a process, an orderly, organized process. And that's not what's happening. When my colleagues, they want to avoid the issue of the danger to national security. They want to avoid the issue of the fact that there were over 107,000 people who died from drug overdoses, and that's probably underreported by 15 to 20%, based on what some of the coroners have said. The number of people who don't want it on the death certificate that their loved one died from a drug overdose. Fentanyl is a weapon that's coming across our borders that's killing young people at a record level. The drug overdose death rate for people under age 24 is at an all-time high, especially among the African-American community. So what I have a real hard time understanding why we continue to operate the way we operate, and the questions I'm asking are about the people that you've picked up, not the ones who got away. And you don't even know how many gotaways they are, because those are only the ones that you saw. So, Mr. Chairman, I sit here and listen to some of the questions from my colleagues, and many of them voted to not condemn socialism. And I just wonder what the real agenda is here for an open border. Crap, we can't even keep a balloon from crossing our border, and we don't do anything about it till it's about to leave. It kind of sounds like our border policy across the board. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back.